So, The Holdovers is a rather charming, sweet, but also at sometimes cynical, but always lovable type of. I'm trying to find the right words here. Like it's definitely a Christmas film, in the regard that I'm probably going to watch this many more Christmases from now. But it's also it's a coming of age drama, but it's set in the 1970s, and it has that kind of 1970s vibe to it, where it feels like a small gem that would have been made during that era, that focuses a lot on character drama and getting used to a handful of characters, getting to know them in great detail, and getting to love them after a certain point. So the film is directed by Alexander Payne, and it's one that takes a lot of paths that I did not expect. Like my first thought when this film began was I thought it was gonna be like a very much like a throwback film, that it was gonna use the 70s soundtrack the whole time, like the way that the opening credits are framed. Like it's kind of got that gentle feels, like it's got the snow falling, it's got the classic type of credits that it's like. I love the way that they frame like the white credits right next to like the white snow, just like perfectly angled like that, and there's gentle rock playing over it, so it's definitely got that retro vibe. But the story here is it's the 1970s, and it takes place at an all-boys academy, in which the Christmas season is coming up, and all the boys are getting ready to leave, but a few of them don't. A few of them get left behind. They're referred to as kind of like the holdovers, because they can't go home for one reason or another. Either their family is traveling, they're abroad, there's problems at home. For whatever reason, they cannot go home. So they get stuck at the school, and one teacher has to stay behind and look after them and make sure that, the kids are safe and they don't get into trouble. So those duties for this particular Christmas year fall to Paul Hunnam, a teacher of ancient history who's played by Paul Giamatti. Now, from the first moment that we see Paul, I thought, okay, like this is going to be like, a curmudgeon-y old man who, he's a grump, he doesn't get along well with others, and he's got to like learn the true meaning of Christmas or something like that. And thankfully he doesn't. Like, I love the way that they set Paul up as this guy who's he cares a lot about ancient history, and he wants his students to do well in his class. But he's also somewhat traditional and a little bit stuck in his ways. Like he basically doesn't want to conform to, giving students who bring in a lot of money to the school an easy A, even though he's encouraged to by the staff. He tries to give fair grades. He's very hard on his students, but he also wants them to succeed. And he's not, even though they establish him as a mean guy, he's mean in the sense that, he just gives a lot of homework, and he talks way too much about ancient history with a love that only he seems to have. Now, my worries about this character was that he was going to just be that grumpy kind of guy, because the first time we see him, he's grading papers, and he's just kind of like scoffing, like, this isn't very good, this isn't very good. And then one of the administrative staff come to his door, and they give him a plate of Christmas cookies to, wish him like, Merry Christmas. Like, I know you prefer to just, be in your room the whole time. You want to be in your little house off campus where you just read books and grade all the time. That's all you want to do. But she gives him some Christmas cookies. Now, the moment when she leaves and he's standing there with the plate of Christmas cookies, I thought, he's going to dump them in the trash. He's going to do it immediately. And thankfully, he doesn't. He actually, like, I thought they were about ready to have him do that, but no, he actually puts the cookies aside, and he saves them for a later date when he could actually, share them with more people, because like it's too many cookies just for himself. So yeah, he's clearly thinking about other people. So one of the students who gets left behind is one of Paul's best students, Angus Tully, played by Dominic Sessa. And Angus, he's one of the best students, but like the best students in like a kind of B+ sort of way, where all the other students are getting like D's and F's and just C minuses. And here's Angus, who's just, compared to everyone else, he's kind of knocking it out of the park here. And Tully is very much looking forward to, he was hoping to go home for Christmas, but due to problems with his family, like his mom decided that with her new boyfriend, they're going to take, their honeymoon right at this time, at the worst possible moment. So Tully is bitter that he has to stay behind with all the other students, and it's made even worse by the fact that all the other students get picked up at a later date, just before Christmas starts. So then Tully is just stuck with Paul the whole time, and it's just like, it's like his worst nightmare. And it's kind of a little bit to Paul's aggravation as well. But there's one other person who is still at the academy, and that is Mary, who's played by Davine Joy Randolph. And she, this is kind of going to be a very bitter Christmas for her. So Mary is the academy cook. She's in charge of like cooking all the meals for all the different students. And when Christmas time rolls around, all the other students, all the other chefs are gone, and it's just her, making meals for like the holdovers. And it's usually just like, leftovers or, whatever's, there's no more shipments of food coming in. So it's just like whatever's left over, that's what you get. So this is the first Christmas that Mary is spending without her son, who died during the Vietnam War, just as he was becoming an adult. And a similar thing happened to her husband many years ago. So this is her first Christmas where she's spending it at the academy entirely alone. And it's sad, but at the same time, it's just like, she's a bit bitter and disillusioned with the world that she would rather just, she would rather kind of be on her own, just like smoking cigarettes and, and drinking some brandy, having some liquor, and Paul, having like a similar outlook to the world, kind of like shares a few moments with her. So, since she's the only adult around, he figures, might as well, talk to her, say, get a little chummy, and they have some cute moments where they hang out, they watch television, even though Paul doesn't watch very much television at all. So, they connect over game shows, and, they drink and they smoke and they talk about their dreams and their past and their desires and stuff like that. And just wonderful moments between them. And as you might expect, similar things happen between Paul and Tully as well. They start realizing that, if we're stuck here, we should try to make the best of it. So, some accidents happen, but they try to make the best of it. They end up going off campus to get a bite to eat, maybe attempt to grab a beer, go on like a field trip into the city, maybe take in a museum, mark it down as a field trip. And, maybe go to a Christmas party, just try to have fun. Because I love how the film sets these characters up, not so much as broken people who need to be fixed, but broken people who just need someone to be there, to share in their love. Because I love the way that both, like the youthful, teenager Angus Tully is framed against like, the adults of Paul and Mary, because Tully is a young person who is afraid of what he's going to become. He's afraid that, that his father, who you later learn, you later learn the tragic events of his father, Tully has this fear that he's going to end up like his dad, while Paul and Mary kind of like have similar fears about, their family and their lineage, but more from like the past. Like they're afraid that they won't be able to move on from what they once were and be something more than, what came before them. So, there's this constant like anxiety, this internal conflict between all these characters where they don't feel that they can expose themselves as much, that it takes like a few, it takes a lot of like, getting used to these characters and like being around them where they can start to open up a little bit. And I love how like they don't unload everything all at once. Like there's not one moment in this film where they all just like sit down and just air out everything in their past life. And there are a few moments where that could happen. Like at one point when they're having like their little makeshift Christmas dinner, you feel like that's the moment where everyone is just kind of going to spill their guts all over the table. But they don't. They reveal a little bit about themselves, but not as much as they're comfortable with exposing, mostly because they're terrified of what other people might think. So the way that it's kind of that it slowly comes out, and the surprises just keep coming. Even when you get into the third act of the film, it's just like one surprise after another that makes these characters more complex and more interesting, and just more lovable. Like, you just, like, even like within like the first act of the film, like, I immediately loved these characters. Like, I love what they were about. I loved their problems, their struggles, like the issues that they all face. Like even Paul, who seems like so assured of himself, he still is very self-conscious about his body, relationships that he wants to pursue. He's a drunk. He drinks too much. He basically retreats to the bottle. But I love how, like, the ultimate resolve isn't just that he's got to put the booze down. It's just he needs to find love. It's not something as superficial as you need to let go of this one thing and everything else will just fall into place and your life will be perfect. Because the truth is, your life won't be perfect. But you can still go about your life and still have people who can understand you a little bit more, who can sympathize with you, who can understand your struggle, and just kind of be there with you to hold your hand every once in a while. And I love how you get to see so many sides of these characters at different points. Like, throughout most of the film, you see Mary as just like a bit of like this, very like self-assured woman. Like, all it takes is like a little bit of liquor and she's good to go. She'll just, hang out and chat with you. But then when you get to the Christmas party, in which, she starts drinking too much, you start seeing her darker side come out, where, the fact that her son and her husband are never coming back really start hitting her hard in that moment. And there's not like an easy resolve for it either. In fact, what's very impressive about Randolph's many scenes is that a lot of them rely on so little dialogue to sell her character so perfectly. One of like her best scenes is there's a moment where, where during the Christmas holiday, she figures, oh, I might as well go visit some of my other family. Like, they're expecting a child. Maybe it could give them some of my my son's old baby stuff. And there's a very like touching moment where it's like there's no dialogue. There isn't a word spoken, where she's just in the room for this new child and just, gives a little bit of a sigh as she carefully takes all the stuff of her son and places it in the drawer, and a family member off to the side just kind of walks in, notices it, and they just embrace and hug, just like a few tears coming out. And it is such a perfect moment there. And that's among so many other moments here that work perfectly, where, Paul's very insecure about himself and Tully tries to kind of like, push him forward a little bit. And in some regards, it is fun to see like they'll play off each other. Like, at one point, Paul runs into someone who's become like a much more successful person in life, and he tries to lie, and Tully keeps, kind of like building him up more, and they build up like believable lies. It's not like that kind of like sitcom level of lies where, it gets more and more exaggerated. It's just, it feels like, Tully is, like he's kind of like playing with Paul, but at the same time, he's also looking out for him. So it's that fine line between like, being insulting and just like, poking fun at authority figures, and also feeling, for this other person who didn't see as a human being before, and you get to see a different side of them. So like my initial perception of this film was I thought it was going to be something like The Breakfast Club. But it actually turned out to be something a whole lot more than that, for a variety of reasons, primarily just because it's not just about, the youth, being held up higher over adults. It's youth and adults meeting on this similar level of both being broken and both understanding that people can change and that adults don't have it as together as some, young people might think. It also doesn't have an easy resolve for them. Like, a Breakfast Club is just like, oh, just, make a few friends, change this about yourself. There is no easy answer for that in this film. And just the Just the dialogue is so sharp in this film. Like it's like I said, it's sparingly used in a few scenes, but in a lot of scenes, it just comes off. The dialogue just comes off very earnest and believable. In so many of these scenes, and I love the way that the characters shift throughout like this Christmas break, how it counts down the days and shows you how those characters progress. Like after a night of drinking at the Christmas party where Mary just crumbles and is just a sobbing mess by the evening's end, she wakes up the next morning, before anyone's up. She's already in the kitchen. She's already cooking up breakfast. She's like, yeah, wee bit of a hangover, but I'm good. I'm fine again. Just the way that they quickly shift and they change gears and can see different sides of themselves. It's just beautiful. It's a very touching film, but I also want to stress it's deeply funny. It's very, there are so many moments that are just profoundly not absurd, but very telling and very I don't quite want to say ridiculous, but just charming moments with these characters. In particular, one of my favorite scenes is when Paul and Tully are walking through the city, and a prostitute comes up to Paul and tries to solicit him for sex. And Paul just kind of casually is just like, no, I don't think so. And Tully is just kind of like, dude, come on. If you want to have sex, you can. But yeah, you're old. You're probably not getting any. And Paul just gives this look like, you think I haven't had sex, have you? I'm not going to ruin your brain here, but I've done some stuff in my past. And I love how Paul caps off this moment by saying here, why don't you come with me to the Ancient History Museum? I know where all the smutty artifacts are. Just to, and he has that kind of very beautiful some moment where he says you might think that that there history has nothing to teach you, but there actually is some stuff that it can teach you about about the present, just because you might think that the stuff you're experiencing now is just something new and that only you understand and that adults haven't lived through all this stuff. But no, the truth is adults have lived through quite a bit of the same stuff that young people still do today. Not to the exact same degree, but just from similar things that you can connect with, sense of loss, sense of, being afraid that you're going to end up like your parents, being afraid that you're not good enough, that you're not going to, achieve your dreams, that you're, a fear of going out there and trying and just being worried that you are not going to be able to overcome in this world. And the fact that young and old people are able to connect on this level and that they have so many sweet moments in this film. Another fantastic moment is where they end up with, I think it's Cherry's Jubilee that they make in the parking lot. Just so many wonderful moments in this film. And I love just the tone of it with the casual editing and the gentle music, the way that it kind of just proceeds with the story and takes it down so many routes that you don't expect and reveals so much about these characters. It just made me feel so good watching this film. It filled me with just this warm sensation that, people who feel like they're alone during this holiday, that they can't quite find a way to connect with other people, don't feel as alone, because there is someone else out there who does have similar problems to yours. Maybe not to the same degree, but to a level where they could listen, they could sympathize, and try to find some way to comfort in their own way. And on that level, it's an astounding film. I love the way that it made me feel. I love the tone of it all, the characters that are developed. Paul Giamatti is fantastic in this, as he is in everything. Davine Joy Randolph is great. She's definitely a highlight of the film. And Dominic Sessa, early in his career, I can't wait to see what this kid does next after this. So yeah, I think, it's a bit early, but I would dare to say that I think this film is gonna be part of my Christmas movie watch rotation, just because it's a somewhat unconventional Christmas film, and it just made me feel so good during it. So yeah, I absolutely love The Holdovers. I cannot wait to see this film again and watch it every Christmas, because it's so damn good.